welcome everybody. It's Chris, and we're back in the studio. We're doing some painting with watercolors, of course, and our favorite medium. And we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of us, as watercolor artists, we do use this technique a lot, but we just might not really maybe think of it as a technique. We just sort of do it naturally because it sort of is a natural way of like painting with watercolors. But so I'll just go over it myself in my own way of how like I do it, and then you can kind of in your mind ask yourself the question: do I use this technique or this style of painting watercolor? Does it make sense to paint this way? And maybe it makes sense to paint this way sometimes, but not in all situations. But this way is definitely a great way to paint, and it's really just a simple thing of putting our paints prior to painting in our palette, and then so we have all our colors laid out first nicely in our palette, so that we don't have to really be thinking about it too much once we start going in and doing our painting. So let's just focus in on this for a few minutes or so, and we'll just have a fun time with it and go with the flow here. I have a small mat that I'm going to use. I'm going to put this over I have a watercolor teaching book in front of me, so I'm going to use this to put over one section of the flowers in that book. So I'm working from a book that has a painting, a watercolor painting of flowers, yellow irises. So I'm just going to put this across from me, and I'm going to tape it with some artist tape onto the book itself, so that I can isolate a certain section of the flowers, so that I'm not kind of distracted by the whole picture or the whole painting. So I'll just take this mat and I'll put it on the book. So in essence, I would be, let's say this is the picture in the book. I'll isolate the one section I want to paint with the mat over the top and tape it to the book like that. And then I'll set it across from me, and this way I'll isolate just this one section, so that I don't have to really maybe concern myself with all that information on the other parts of the painting. So we'll do that. Okay, now I think when I start out here I need some cab lemon yellow in my palette. So I'll take a needle nose pliers and just work on getting this that. Okay, that's some cadmium lemon yellow we needed there. And we'll redo this same color. I'll just this was from yesterday, from last night when I was painting. So I'll just clean up my palette a little bit, spritz some of the paint with some more water. And it's always good to liven up our paints with some water. This is just a Holbein spritzer bottle. That's about $2 maybe online. You fill it with water. You keep fresh water in there, and then before you're going to paint, maybe an hour before you paint, you spray your paints, and they stay nice and moist. And with our techniques that we use here, we always try to keep our paints moist in our palette, so that when we go to paint, it's always a nice, soft, moist paint that we work with. And I find that if I keep my palette in a plastic bag in the refrigerator during the summertime and when it's really warm, my paints will stay nice and moist, just like this. So when I'm not using my palette and painting, I wrap it up, put it in a plastic bag, seal the bag, put it into a refrigerator, and then when I'm ready to paint, I go to the refrigerator, and my paints usually are pretty much like this when I remove it from the refrigerator. And in the wintertime, I leave it by a window. Usually the windows are a little drafty and chilly, so if I just leave my palette the same way in a bag, zipped up, when I'm not painting, and I leave it by a drafty window in the wintertime, it stays nice and cool, and the paints stay nice and fresh and moist, just like that. So we're going to just do a quick cleanup of our palette. So I'll get a paper towel with a little water. And we'll just start off with a nice clean palette to work from. It's good to do that frequently when we paint. Okay, now we'll do our drawing first, and we're just going to do a small section of drawing so that we don't get too long-winded here. We have our round brushes, of course, Kolinsky Sable round brushes, travel series. These are by Charles Reid, and I bought these online on Charles Reid's site, and they're great. They beautiful brushes, great points. They last a long time and they perform great. These are the best brushes you can buy in watercolor, really. And they're made by Escoda, so they're a fantastic brand, top quality. Okay, so I'm using really top quality paper too as well. I'm using Arches hot pressed, 300 gram, 140 pound. It's the pink color packaging. I buy blocks. This way I can paint. And then when I'm done with the painting, I just trim around the block and peel off that page, and I can start another painting. Okay, now let's do just a... This is a 09 mechanical pencil. And we'll do a contour drawing here. We'll just do a... I think it's always good to just get a nice rectangle. To start, and then we can gauge our drawing through that rectangle. So now I have this across from me, this Precut Mat that I got at the local hobby and art store. I have this Precut Mat. I place it over the area of the painting I want to isolate and paint, and then it gives me the same effect of this. And sometimes it takes a little bit of patience here to get that mat just right when you set it up across from you, and you can move it around and get that perfect placement of where you want to see that mat sitting across, sitting on top of the flower or the on whatever the subject matter is you are painting. So here I'm going to. It takes a few minutes to set it up. I actually use some tape, artist tape. And then I move it around until I think it looks just right, and then that's where I'll leave it. Okay, now I'll do a contour drawing. I did the same thing similar to this yesterday. So since I did draw this and paint this last night, it's now like more familiar, and I can draw and paint this now pretty comfortably without having to maybe do a preliminary sketch. But let's do a preliminary sketch anyway, just so we kind of have the idea here. So let's go do this and like that. And as I contour draw, it is a concentration type feel when you're contour drawing. So you're just totally going back and forth from the drawing to the page, drawing to the page, drawing to the page, your subject matter to the page as you're drawing. You just kind of slowly go, and you're just we're trying to follow the shapes, and doesn't have to be perfect at all. The fun of contour drawing is you're freely having fun doing it. It's like a trip, going on a trip. You're having fun, you're just going with the flow. And you get better at it. The more you practice contour drawing, the better, the easier it becomes and the more fun it becomes. In the beginning, it takes time to build up the concentration and to learn how to gauge your angles correctly and your proportions correctly, but that all takes a little bit of time. Anyone that says artwork is easy or painting or drawing is easy, they're not really being honest. It's difficult. In the beginning, it takes time. Okay, it's not exactly perfect the way it is in the painting, but it's... And you can always do a little fixing up too. Once you have your drawing, your contour drawing done, you can always do a little fix-ups and go over lines. Once we start painting, you're not really going to see it. And I like pencil lines anyway on my paintings, so if I see pencil lines, a lot of pencil lines in my painting, I really enjoy that myself, but not everyone's the same. So you're the artist. You create your paintings the way you like it, and if you want to erase a little more, you can do that too, just so you remove some lines here and there, you know. Okay, perfect. So we have our contour drawing complete. We're ready to paint. This is the part where I say we put on the brakes and we say, all right, let's make this a lot easier for ourselves. Let's look at the subject matter across from us, whether it's a photograph, an art book that we're working from, whatever it is, or just in real life, we're doing still life painting or a landscape or a seascape out by the ocean or in the city doing a cityscape, whatever it is. We just look out and we say, look out in front of us and say, what colors do we see? Let's put them out on our palette first. And this way we can get that all done first, and then we can go into our painting and we won't be distracted by taking a lot of time trying to think of what colors we need to use and so forth. So here I'm going to look and say, okay, I see a lot of raw umber. I see quite a bit of burnt sienna. I see burnt umber, quite a bit. I see sap green, olive green, cerulean blue. I see purple, mineral violet, cobalt blue I also can see in the painting, and some cadmium lemon yellow. And I clean my brush each time I go in to get new fresh paint. Not always when I'm painting, but when I'm doing this here, putting my colors on first. Okay, that looks pretty good. Some alizarin crimson. And then cadmium lemon yellow. And some cadmium yellow. Alright, so now this is the fun part. We have all of our, basically all the colors we're going to use out on our palette. We know these are the colors we're going to use for our painting, and now we can just relax and just start painting. And the only minor thing that I would say here that's a little bit of a something to think about is when we use these colors here that are on the palette, that we put onto the palette, they're going to basically give us our middle values, our lighter to middle values. So those are, some lighter middle values. So those are the lighter middle tonal values here that we can use when we're working on the palette like this. So if we want to get our darks, so just remember when you're painting and you're looking across and you're looking at your subject matter, when you see some really dark darks in your painting, you just have to remember you're going to go straight into your tube paint now for those darker darks. So I'll go in and straight into the fresh squeeze tube paint. And we get our darkest darks. So that's really the simplicity of it. For your darkest darks, you'll go right into your tube paint that you've squeezed out into the wells of your palette. And for your middle tones and your lighter tones, you're just going to work using this, what's already in the palette, which you put in first, to lay out all your colors of your painting so that you don't have to worry about that once you're painting. Because we know watercolors is usually a fast medium. You're kind of working in a quicker fashion because the paint's drying on the paper, but you still want to keep all your paint colors mingling and mixing on your paper. So this is a huge help for that kind of a situation. Not all paintings are the same, and you can adjust your techniques as you tackle different paintings, but for this style painting where we're going to paint something where we're going to have lots of variation in colors and tonal values and getting this beautiful effect of lots of interesting things happening on our paper with our painting, then we have to think this way, that we're going to have lots of colors. Pick out the ones we need first here, and you can change them around from what I have, and depending on what you're going to paint. And then, of course, you're going to use the fresh squeeze tube paint to get your darkest darks when you're going in and doing the darkest dark sections like this here. Some of these darkest darks here. So that would be the fresh squeeze tube paint right in the wells. And then these middle tones and lighter tones you can just use right here from this. Okay, let's go for it. Let's do it. And we'll just start this maybe just to get ourselves so here we'll go in. We're going to do our middle tones and our lighter tones here. Maybe a little cadmium red too here. And we'll leave a little white paper there. Now I'm getting my darker tonal values by going right into the fresh squeeze paint. Okay, and then And I changed my brush here a little bit just to get some finer lines here. Okay, so now now we're going in and doing more of our darker darks. Okay, we're getting there. For the most part, we can kind of see everything is having a good feel of lots of variation in colors, tonal values, and we're really now just sort of finishing up the flowers under the leaf forms underneath here. Okay, so that's basically the idea. Working with a palette where you have all your colors laid out first. So you're doing your middle values as you go in your painting, using your colors you've laid out previously. And then if you need to add a little bit to it, you already know you can just match them as you go and say, oh, I need a little more raw umber, or I need a little more burnt sienna there. So you already have everything laid out and you can easily add more to it as you go. And then it's really simple. After that, we just, if we need those darker tonal values like here, and we need some here on this section. So we can do the darker darks with our fresh squeeze tube paint. That's where you're going to get your darkest darks that are going to look the best. And then from there, you're really set. And then you can go in and even, you know, touch up here and there if you think there's a few areas that need some darker darks. You can add them in. They look better if you can get them, you know, really accurate on the first try when you're painting, but it's not going to, it's still going to look good if you go in and touch up a few more darks in here once your painting is starting to dry and you're looking at it and assessing things. All right, I hope this helps. Feel free to leave comments, and if you have any questions and so forth, and please thumbs up if you like this one, and we'll do some more like this. Flower paintings are always fun. One of my favorite things to paint are flowers. So everyone, have a great evening, a day, a great morning, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.